When I was in high school, we had something called Key Club. I know they do this at other high schools too. It was basically a club where you show up and they give you some kind of community service work to do. So these could be like local food drives, some kind of like holiday cleanup, but basically it was just these mini projects that the club would give you to do. I know a lot of people are also involved in NHS, National Honor Society, which is very similar in the way it's run. A lot of times they'll give you like school-related volunteering projects, like you go clean up your football field as part of this broader club. I'm here to keep it 100 with you. These clubs honestly feel like some of the worst clubs to be a part of in high school. You literally do not need a middleman when it comes to volunteering. If you want to do some kind of volunteering as a high school student, why do you need a third-party club to give you the projects or assignments to do, things that maybe you weren't even interested in, but you're just kind of obligated to do them because you're involved in the club? Let's talk about volunteering, specifically in a college admissions context. If you want to get involved in volunteering, you don't need these external clubs to guide you. You can do it independently, and in this video, I'm going to show you the best way to go about doing that. I'm going to show you how to do it, what kinds of volunteering you should be getting involved in, how many hours you need, all of the main details I'm going over in this video. It is a full, cohesive guide. Now, it doesn't matter what college major you're interested in, you should still be getting involved in some kind of community service. Fundamentally, if you just want to understand why this is, it's because doing something like long-term volunteering shows specific characteristics to colleges. It's a great way to show things like commitment and empathy to schools who don't really get that kind of perspective into who you are. Good grades and SAT scores are the first thing colleges will look at, but volunteering shows them something outside of an academic context. Now, this all sounds great, but let's start talking about the tangibles. How do you get involved in volunteering, and what is the best kind of volunteering to get involved in? In an ideal world, you know at least what field you want to study when you go to college. This is important because it slightly changes our approach to volunteering. In a perfect world, you can volunteer in an activity that is somewhat connected to your actual career interests. Let's just take the healthcare field for instance. If you were interested in something like medicine, dentistry, becoming a nurse, if you were able to volunteer in a clinical setting where you get some kind of interaction with patients, with other healthcare providers, you're able to be in a hospital setting and just get a feel for what that's like. Think about how much more you can learn from doing that. It's also way more relevant when you're putting together your college application and building a narrative. Now you have all of these activities, all these volunteering activities that are connected to the exact major you're applying to colleges for. It's like a justification for why you want to go into that field. Now, if you like computer science, this might be a little bit more difficult. Maybe you get involved as a coding tutor for kids, or you find some other creative approach to connect computer science with volunteering. I also want to make it clear, every volunteering experience that you have does not need to be directly connected to the major that you're interested in. This approach is just a great starting point because it gives you direction if you just don't know what to do. It's also just super useful because you know that if you're going to eventually go into this particular field, the volunteering experiences that you're doing, just like we talked about, will be relevant on your college application. The likelihood that you'll actually be able to use them and that they are useful to you is very, very high. So the first step is to just start figuring out your interests so you can narrow potential volunteering opportunities. But as you start researching, your next logical question is going to be, okay, how do I find these? A lot of times your local library or religious institution will literally have like paper physical flyers for places that you can start volunteering. Now, your goal with this doesn't actually have to be to find the exact opportunity that you're gonna volunteer in at one of these places when you're looking at like these flyers or like a bulletin board. But your goal with it should be to get your ideas flowing. Now you have a couple of examples of things that you could do, and now that the ideas are there, you can potentially build on them in the future or find your own way of getting involved in something like this. You're going to do the same kind of research in your school as well. Sometimes if you have like, for instance, a Red Cross club or some other kind of volunteering club that aligns with your interest, you can get involved in the club just to gain knowledge. Remember what we talked about at the start of the video? You are not obligated to have a middleman when it comes to your volunteering. If your school's Red Cross Club has like a deal with a local hospital and they're assigning hours where students can go and work there, maybe you don't need to do the actual volunteering through the club. You could just independently reach out to that hospital and get your opportunity that way. And if you do that, well then now you have a lot more freedom and flexibility. You could find a particular time every week where you can just go in independently, not connected to any club, and just do your volunteering hours. You could get those service hours in, learn a couple things, and have that kind of consistency that you might not get if you did it through your school club. These kinds of conversations are how you actually learn about things. You gotta understand understand, knowledge is number one. Once you actually know what opportunities are out there and what you're interested in, what you want to do, getting the position is not that hard. The knowledge part, the knowledge acquisition, that's the hard part. And people in high school, like, look, I'm not gonna blame you, right? COVID probably stunted your social development. TikTok is degenerating your brain. You can barely hold a conversation with someone if you're not watching like the little Subway Surfers half screen, okay? I get all of that. But building these social connections and actually putting yourself out there, that is such a valuable skill. That's probably more important than anything else you're gonna gain from the actual volunteering itself. Take the time to put yourself out there, get those connections, and learn what other opportunities are there. You're not gonna, bro, the upperclassmen are not gonna bite you, bro. Go make some actual friends, it'll benefit you in the long run. You can also take full advantage of social media. If you see like a nonprofit or a local organization that has like an Instagram page and you really like what they're doing, feel free to reach out to them. A lot of times, if you reach out to them and say, hey, I wanna get involved and help you guys out as like a volunteer, they're not gonna turn down your free labor. They will give you something to do. The advantage of this approach is that you can do something in a niche that you're genuinely interested in. Just be a little bit mindful when you're getting involved in something that's a little bit less established. You just wanna make sure you don't waste your time. So at this point, you've done your research and you've found some potential volunteering opportunities that you're willing to commit to. What now? Actually getting the opportunity should not be that hard. At the end of the day, you are free labor. The companies want you. You just need to be persistent and diligent with your efforts to reach out. Now, the only exception is if you want to volunteer at like a hospital, for instance. In that case, they might ask you to be 16 years old. And if you're a little bit on the younger side, I feel your pain, bro. I really do. So instead of working in like a hospital gift shop or doing some like mind-numbing work, I know sometimes when you go to volunteer in hospitals, they will literally stick you at the front and have you give directions to people for 8 hours. Can you imagine doing that like for multiple shifts on like a yearly basis? You go in every week and you give directions to people. Like I wouldn't inflict that kind of punishment on my worst enemies. It's not worth your time to volunteer in a hospital or some other kind of place just because it's a hospital setting. What you do actually does matter, and if you're not doing anything relevant or connected to that field, you're better off just finding another opportunity. You could get some actual patient contact by potentially working in a senior care home or by working with students that have a particular type of disability. There are always other options out there. It is worth your time to do the research. I want to address a question that I get asked literally all the time. Pratik, how many volunteering hours do I need? The honest answer is that colleges themselves don't have a specific number that they are looking for. I'm not trying to BS you with a half answer here, but you are genuinely better off doing an activity consistently and long-term as opposed to just grinding out 100 volunteering hours for some activity over one winter break. Think about it this way. If you volunteer once a week as a tutor and you volunteer for 2-hour sessions and you do that 50 weeks a year, after 3 years of consistent volunteering, you will have accrued 300 volunteering hours, which is absolutely fantastic. Aim for that long-term consistency and you will be in the clear when it comes to hours. Volunteering something like once a week or once every other week and just having a consistent schedule with it is the best approach when it comes to volunteering. There's one more super important tip that I have to bring up. Document literally everything. Log all of your hours, take photos of any special projects you did or anything relevant to that activity, and also keep a written record of any kind of interesting events or stories or things that you did during your volunteering. That doesn't have to be like, when I say written, I don't mean like a physical notebook. Just create a Google Doc or create like a Google Sheets spreadsheet and just make little notes as you're going through that activity, that volunteering experience. At some point, you'll have some volunteering shift where something crazy happens. Make notes of it as soon as it occurs so that it's still fresh in your mind and you have that as a reference later on. When you eventually need to write your college and scholarship essays, you will be shocked at how useful being organized early on will help you out later. I'm going to be reading and responding to a bunch of comments on this video, so if you have any questions related to volunteering, just let me know and I got you. Thank you all so much for watching. This has been Pratik. Peace.